Okay, so the topic today is Celtic knots. You must have seen these before, right? Celtic knots. Okay, so this is a style of art that goes back at least 3,000 years. There are artifacts found in Europe, places like Ireland, Scotland, sometimes even in Central Europe, which is east of Switzerland, Germany, and also as south as Portugal and Spain. And these artworks or this particular style of making knots was has been attributed to a group of people called the Celts, who had a very mysterious origin. They were just a bunch of tribes all over Europe, right from, I guess, 3000 BC for sure, and definitely from about 1000 BC, which would be the Iron Age. So, around the Iron Age, these tribes, which followed a certain common culture, were spread all across Europe. Now, to give a little bit of context, this is the time before the Roman Empire really became as big as it did. And the Roman Empire, I think its reign was from about 700 BC to about 700 AD. So, a good 1500 years of that space. So, before that was when the Celts were all around. And they were more a warring, agrarian, tribal, pagan culture. So, they were not looking at organizing into a big civilization or anything like that. They were very virtuous. They were obviously a warrior clan. So for them, bravery and valor were held a very high stature in society. And they too had a hierarchy. They would have a chief, and imagine Asterix and Obelix to some extent. And that's how they had druids, and they had different categories of priests. So a lot of the same thing we are introduced in Asterix and Obelix to some extent. And one of the tribes is also called Galli, Galli, which resembles Gaul, which was that part of France where the story of Asterix and Obelix comes from. So this conflict between the Romans and the Celts and different tribes of Celts was common for a long time till about 450, I guess 450 BC only, when they were routed and then the Romans took over everywhere. So this is towards the end of the Iron Age. Now, this is just to know what the background for this art form would be. This whole idea of drawing interconnected lines and overlapping lines and all of this is quite unique. It's of course we see some of that also in the column that they draw in the south when they make these rangolis. So whenever you have the Celtic art, it is evidence of, I guess, one might say, a culture that follows a particular principle of revering nature and sometimes also the interconnectedness in nature and everything around them. So clearly very pagan. Many of their basic symbols had always had three features. So there would be 3 points, and that was often considered to be that something like you never have two extremes. There's always a gray area. That's what they believed in. So you would have black, white, and gray. The three elements in nature. You would have earth, water, and sky. Similarly, in many other religions and cultures also, there's a whole idea of Trinity, which is what many of these artworks used to have. So I'll share the pictures that I put on the group, and they have some explanation over here. So this sign at the bottom right is a circle with this is called a triskel, and it indicated like just a continuous circle or continuous line that moves in this form, which could be anything. You have life, death, and then rebirth, or you could have earth, land, and water, and it's unending. So it's like an infinite loop which is linked into a circle. Then you have, oh, these are just the construction, which I'll show you. And then you have ornaments like these, which were found in a lot of grave sites. And what they also find is like these items are called grave goods. I didn't even know that. So when you have items which are found in a grave for the person in the grave, they were called grave goods. So I'm going to be sharing a few videos on this at the end of this video, or I'll share it on the group also. Whenever you have time, they're just 10-15 minute videos. They're good fun to listen to, because also it helps you to understand the whole culture behind this. So we're going to start off with just making some of these designs, copying the designs the way they were. They're very simple geometric manner of going about this design, and we only have to play with overlaps. So I'm going to show you one basic overlap that we do for baskets. I think we've done baskets in the past, at some point we might have done that.
May not have.
uh,
I mean,
okay. It's possible. So I'll just go over one basket like weave to understand that, and then we will move to how these designs were made also in a similar way, but it's not the basket way of going about it. Okay, so to give you an idea of the composition for today's page, I will be making all the test illustrations in small sizes over here to help you to practice the knotting system. And then in the remaining half, we'll make the graphic about this size, which we will paint. So let's start with making a square, take a distance of 2 fingers from the top and the left, because some of the design might loop outward, and make a square that is about 1.5 inches or 2 inches. So maybe the size of two phalanges on your finger. Now we'll divide this into 4 parts, horizontally and vertically. And when you're dividing this, just see that you are getting somewhat square like shapes. This part we draw very light. Now, in order to make a basket or basket weave, this is what we do. We have to make horizontal and vertical lines in alternating squares in a particular sequence. And we have to go beyond the line that marks the squares. So let's start with, I'll just show you how the first row goes, and then you can draw it. So somewhere over here, I'm going to make a pair of horizontal lines that goes past the first block into the second block. Then I'm going to make the second pair of lines vertically. Again, these go into the block underneath. Now here we draw a line that starts before block number 3 begins and goes beyond into block number 4. So it's a rather long line. And then we also extend a little bit to the end of the square. So a little bit will escape and will be visible. Okay, do you want to just make this part? Hi, Anya.
Hi. 1 second.
Yeah, we're just
What are we doing?
we are making a basket weave for now. So if you're ready, just make a square about an inch and a half. So it's about this big. Divide it into four parts by first making a line in the center and then dividing each of the sides in two, vertically and horizontally. And then we are making these lines. So we're just drawing a pair of horizontal lines starting from the left and going past beyond the border of box number 1 and 2 into box number 2, where they go and touch a pair of vertical lines which also extend into the box below, and so on, and carry to the end. Now in the next row, this is row 1 and row 2, we change and make it in the opposite direction. So we start off with vertical lines, then make the horizontal line extending exactly the same way, and then vertical and then horizontal. And in this case, you can extend the line that you have drawn in this column number 2 or column B, let's say, into the column A to on the left of the first line that you've drawn. So into column A, the first box in row 2. And now over here we change it back to exactly like row 1. Now over here it's very important to note that the lines that we draw in the third row need to look like they continue from row 1. So we should be careful that they don't shift. Like even this little bit of shift makes it look odd. Likewise, these lines horizontally must also look like they legitimately have gone underneath the vertical line there and emerged from underneath there. At this point, if your lines are not exactly equal, like the distance between all the lines is not equal, don't worry about that. But do focus on this continuing, these lines continuing through. In today's class, if there's one most important thing we have to do, we have to make sure that the lines look like they continue. The rest will all look fine. Again, over here in row 4, look for lines to continue. So that's our basic basket weave. And here now also I will extend this up. So it looks like I have taken a patch out of a basket. Now this exercise is good to observe overlapping. Sometimes overlapping can look rather confusing. You don't know where you have to make a vertical line, where you have to make a horizontal line, and it gets a little harrowing. Now, if we were to convert this, if you want to convert this into a Celtic knot, all we need to do is connect these loose ends to each other and it will become a Celtic knot design. So, let's connect the corners together to look like a circle. All corners can look like a circle. So over here it'll look like a teardrop shape. These two lines are straight and then the remaining is a circle. And then we have to make the outside lines go around the circle so that we maintain the thickness of the two lines. And the last one as well. So now we have finished this design in some way. All the corners are tied in, and if you look at it, this has now become like an infinite loop. You can keep going round and round and round in this form. Now the remaining also we can connect like this. Just make a semicircle on the top and connect these two bottoms also, the center two lines, and then we will connect the outsides with another semicircle which is about the same height as the first more than semicircle that we've made on the corner, and do the same thing on the side. And this is the shape you get. So you have interlocking loops or links, and then they are linked together with this infinite loop or ribbon or whatever. Okay, are you able to see this? So this is a crude way of going about making Celtic knot based on basket weaves. But now let's move to the manner in which Celtic knots are drawn, at least among artists who are studying these. We are going to start again with a similar grid, but this time let's make the grid 3 by 3. So I'm making it slightly smaller this time. And divide this box vertically into 3 parts and horizontally into 3 parts. Now in this system, we are first going to draw a set of circles which are going to be these hollow spaces between all these flat ribbon-like shapes. So these hollow spaces will be at these points. The intersection of the lines in the at the cross points within the circle. So not the edges right now. There are designs we're going to make where we will also make circles on the edges, the outer edges. But for this particular motif, we will just keep it here. And then we are going to make the same size circles in the center of all these squares as well. Now we have noted all the points where we are going to accommodate a hollow space, which means that the spaces in between all these circles, we are going to draw these ribbon-like shapes. So let's start with one basic rule. You will draw either a pair of lines leaning towards the right or leaning towards the left, but only in the space which is flanked by four of these circles. So if you have three circles, you will not make any lines in that space. So we are looking at this four circle diamond shape. Wherever you see a diamond shape, in where you have made a circle, you have to make a pair of lines. Now that pair of lines can be drawn like a tangent from one circle to its next circle on the diagonal. And then in the other space. So we have to fill it in this, within this diamond shape. So we will draw the first two lines like this. Okay, now if this is the pair of lines that you have, circles you have used to draw the first line, right below that, if again you have a diamond shape, right below this circle and right below this circle, you can repeat the same pair again. So you don't have to be confused about what direction I need to do. All the circles below each other will respond to that. Like this circle, the line will touch at the bottom and go towards the top right. Below that, the circle, the line starts from here and goes towards the top right, and this can continue infinitely. So now essentially we've got one row of lines which are leaning towards the right. Now right next to them and a little below, we have two other groups of diamonds. In these, we will draw lines going in the opposite direction. So now you see how we are creating overlapping and overlocking. That's these here. So it almost looks like a swastika. Everywhere else now we only have three lines or three circles. So we are not going to make any more lines in this particular motif. Now we are going to loop all of these over. So the looping is very simple. Wherever you have a line going outwards towards the periphery, we can convert that into a loop by bringing it right back around, and you'll notice that if it comes around the corner, it will come in line to connect with this little line here, right? So let's loop this and bring it here. So we get the inside line completed, and then we will loop the outside, go around, just skim the edge of the circle that is on that corner, and come back in such a way that it looks like it continues over here. And we do this on both sides so that we get one link. And if we repeat this on the other side, we will get the other link, and we will have created our first basic motif of a Celtic knot. Okay, I'm deliberately going very slow right now because we have shifted from this basket weave to making a similar structure but using a different grid. And this is the grid that is used to make Celtic knots because many designs are usually on the diagonal. Here our design is vertical and horizontal. Now, of course, if I were to turn it on its side, it will become a diagonal, but this would be a very crude way of making a Celtic knot. I'd rather stick to this technique because it's a lot more efficient. Okay, I
I've done
knots.
these,
Yeah.
I've done these patterns. I just didn't know that that's what it's called.
Sorry, I didn't get that.
And so I've done these patterns looking
Ah.
at, things on the internet. I
Oh,
just didn't know.
Okay.
That's what it is called.
Okay. Oh, how interesting. Okay, now we can make a slightly bigger structure of this. So this time round, let's make a border. So make an edge like this, just one edge. And then we will make the squares first. So first make one row and one column. Second row, second column. I don't want to presume how much the width of our border is going to be. That's why I'm asking you to do this in a more controlled fashion. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. I think these should be enough. Let's see how we can do this. Now the same size of squares we can make vertically and same size squares horizontally. So this is one potential border design that we can make. Now let's try the same technique. Make circles on all the intersections. As this is fairly large, let's make the circles in the center of the squares. Now there are a lot of diamond shapes, plenty of them. So literally start from the top left and start making these diamond shapes. The first dot over here, nothing. The second dot on top, we will draw a line going towards the left. And then all those circles in that row, this entire row or entire line, we will make those parallel lines leaning towards the bottom like this. Then on either side, one row below, or just half a row below, we will make lines leaning on the other side. If there are 4 diagonal circles, you have every right to make a line. You just have to decide on the angle. Now, because our lines are going at an angle, sometimes you can get confused. But literally just follow, like over here, if I'm drawing this line over here, now I don't know where the line has to come to. I have to just look at this circle, look at the circle below that, see if there are 4 circles in the same directions and placement as the first one, and continue making it. And I stop where I do not have a 4th circle. Are you able to do this easily enough? Not too complex, right? I know this is suddenly a very big jump, but I think you should be able to do it. It's very logical. The best bit about this design is at any stage you can finish it off. You don't have to leave it unfinished. You can create certain loops and shapes, and the design just ends. Now in this case, after you've made all these lines, let's finish the outer edge. So the top left corner, we can make it round or we can make it slightly square. This looks really sharp. So all the corners can be made into sharp edges. Don't address anything in the middle right now, just make these corners. And the tip of this corner will go right into the circle at this end. If we were making it round, we would have skimmed the surface, but here we go right into the center of the circle. And then the remaining, we can round them like so. Just do this on the left, and on the inside the same thing, just round them. Their counterparts are available to receive that line. And end this here. And we can end these as well. So because of this whole crisscrossing, this design can make everything look so impressive. Now to add to this, we can give it shadows, and we can give the design some definition. Like for example, we can make the edges much thicker. So the outside edge can be slightly thicker. Just the outside edge. So that will make it stand out even more. We can fill up the space in between. This negative space can be filled up. So these circles can all be filled up. And the third thing we can do is to shade on the side where one pair of lines overlaps the other. So on the bottom part, on both sides, you can shade it, and that will make the overlapping element stand out even more distinctly. All right, now we have made motifs which are all in within squares and all very contained, but I want to show you one which we're going to make as the final motif, where the design comes out of this box shape a little bit as well, like the ornament that I showed you earlier. So for that, let's make a box. So leave about a little more than 2/3 space empty, but I want you to practice this shape here. So make a box which is, if you want to use this size, you can. We want to make it 6 squares across. So we want a 3 by 2 division of space. Making a square is very easy, but when you have to make an odd number of squares, it's good to start off from one edge, make the two adjacent sides, and then start making the squares and then end where you need to. Here again, let's make these circles 1, 2, 3, 4 on all the intersections and the edge as well. And then we will make the circles in the middle. Now here we're going to add one more square. And we're not going to draw circles on the corners, but we will make a circle in the middle of this square. Now we follow the same system. We can start from the center, or we can start even from the top. Wherever you see a diamond, make lines at one angle. For just for fun, if you want, you can change the direction of the angle also, and it will still work as long as you make these lines only in between the diamond shape hollows. So we get a very nice diamond shape basket weave over here. And now we can either make this circular or we can make this angular. There will be a very subtle V shape on the sides where that circle appears because we are skimming over the circle space. That's a very nice guideline to have. Now when we come to the top, you just loop it around, make a U-turn, turning towards the right here. The same thing for the outside. Now here we have to be very careful. You will go beyond the circle, the edge of the square, to maintain the parallel nature of our line thickness. And this is what we get. And now the best thing over here is this whole thing is an infinite loop. So place your pencil anywhere and you will see that this line just goes through from here, comes back around and goes here and goes right back on top. That is what we want. So for this, at least till you get comfortable with making the lines, I'm okay with using an eraser. So that suppose in some place you've made lines leaning right instead of left, quickly erase it and correct the line. One mistaken line and everything can go off. But just be careful when you're drawing the lines in the first place, make them really light. And then as the design starts firming up, you'll start seeing that your lines are making sense, and then we can make them firm. Okay, how's it looking? Are you getting this? All right. Okay, now let's translate this into a bigger space over here. Or let me do one more thing. Let's make it like a bookmark design. So leave a little space on top, maybe 3 finger space on top. And let's start making a design. Make the center, sorry, divide this into 3 parts. And then start making squares till you come all the way down. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. This is good enough, I think. Maybe one more just so that I can center it. Now you can use this slightly differently to mark your space. Remember we made that extra square on top? That can be this square on top and this square at the bottom. So you don't make any circles on this side, just make, oh, not even over here, sorry, only over here. So I'm even removing these two. And I'm starting making the lines from the second line in this grid. You should spend enough time making these circles of the same size in the right place, because making the design after that is very easy. So making the circles should be well thought out. And now that I've come to the bottom, I'll make only a circle in the center square of the last square. And let's begin. So right now I'm just showing you how to make these very simple designs. Everything is geometric. There are very few variables. But this is just the beginning of the design work. There are a lot of different variables you can include. Like for example, not all lines follow a regular pattern. There are designs in which you would have some lines meet like this, then some lines meet like this, and then maybe some lines go through. So there's hajar things that are possible. But I'm going to encourage you to look for some samples and try and replicate those. The best way to replicate is to identify the negative spaces, the blank holes, and first mark those out, and then you will be able to draw everything else. So here we go. We have the corners. Then we can make the center. And the rest are pretty much like how we made this. I was looking for a design option, but I thought it will get very confusing, so I abandoned the idea. I have seen designs which are also like this, where instead of going around here, you can, I think they go straight and also turn like this, something like that. But let's not risk it. I quite like this round design. Once you're confident of your design, we can ink this out. Ink the outline in a thick line. You can use a number 3 or number 5 pen, and then we are also going to make something in a number 1 or number 2. I'm using a number 5. And while you're doing this, if you feel the need to rotate the book, please do that so that you can see where your line is going. Always look for the continuity. In time, you will be able to make the pen lines directly after making the original grid. There. Now once your design is done, you can erase the whole grid. And now we can go over the entire thing one more time with a thinner pen. And this time we make a line inside the given lines. So we will create a separate border within this shape. So try to keep this line parallel. This is excellent exercise to practice steadiness of your hand. So in the beginning, the first few lines you should do should be these short ones and all in one direction. This helps you keep your hand steady, and it does not involve changing the grip of your pen too much. So you get better uniformity of line. It is most likely that if you're right-handed, this is the easiest angle for you. Don't try making the angle, the opposite angle in the same, holding the book at the same, in the same direction. Change it and focus on each section separately. If your outer edges are matching, which you might have focused on doing in pencil first, this will happen fairly well. So you just have to focus on making that line straight and uniform from one end to the other. Keep it confident. Don't draw multiple lines. Even if the line is wobbly, it's fine. Let it be a confident line. Wobbly lines are not a problem. Now where you come to a turn, the line is certainly going to wobble a little bit. But hold your book in a manner that you can see the entire line. So if I hold the line over here, if I hold the book like that and draw this line, I should be able to see the start, middle, and the destiny of the line. Now I'm not able to see where it's going to go, so I'm definitely going to make a mistake here. So I turn it around and I can see clearly where the line has to go. I will be able to make that line better. Similarly over here, turn it around. So when drawing something like that with precision, you can, I like to think of this as looking into the future. You know the destiny of that line because you are creating it. But if you don't see where it has to land up, you could be flying blind literally. And even if you think that you know that you're going to land safely in the place that you want to, chances are that you will either go too close or too far and make that line look a little odd, and then the rest of your design is looking fine, and then that one line is just not following orders. That can be very frustrating. So be patient, take the time to rotate the book, hold the pen at your most convenient angle, and before you're making the line, just exhale once. Don't hold your breath when you're drawing a line. and you should be fine. Now, instantly, it looks so much more formal. Now we can do shading and painting in whichever order you find comfortable or convenient. And for shading, you can use a mechanical pencil. If you shade before painting, then you are not obstructed by the paint, so you know exactly how it's looking. And I prefer shading in pencil because I enjoy the gray shading, the gray color of the shade, the pencil graphite, more than any other shading. And once we put paint on it, this will become opaque, so it won't be, it won't smudge.
Done this earlier. See?
Oh, let's see. 1 minute. What is that? That looks very complex.
No, it's not.
Ah, yeah. So this is a pattern from Zentangles, but this also involves drawing circles and then drawing similar lines, huh? But you change the curve in every alternate thing, right? I love this pattern. It's beautiful. But I remember even I goofed up so much because I would just lose the direction of the line, concave and convex. Even with shading, I normally shade everything that is in one direction first and then go to the other. And this shading we can do even after painting. It just makes the overlapping element really stand out. This is a very nice motif to know, to quickly add some almost formality to a design. Like, for example, if you're making a card and you're just writing Merry Christmas or Happy Birthday, if you make a border like that, which hardly takes any time if you think about it, it suddenly looks so polished and so formal, like you've taken a lot of time and pains to do it, which for the uninitiated, of course, it is a lot of time and pain, but really it's not that much. Compare this option to thinking of painting maybe like a floral border or something, which the amorphous shapes can be very tough to draw. And also, in case of replicating a design, it's always better to stick to something that's geometric and predictable, so you can make a template. Like in this case, you can make a template of all the negative holes and then just draw the lines. I really wish I knew these things when I was in school, because that's when you need all these fancy borders and all. And we used to just make lines with colored pens. We were really not taught too many of these skills, sadly. Great. So now that the shading is done, I'm going to paint this in a couple of colors. Instead of painting this lovely thing in one simple shade, we can use two shades. I'll show you how. So I'm going to be making a mix of gamboge, orange and scarlet. The gamboge will give it a nice warm undertone, and it's a very beautiful yellow in any case, but mostly I will be coloring in scarlet. If we try to paint this flat, it's really sad for watercolor to sit flat. So I enjoy mixing this up as I go along. So I could start off with the scarlet and then I will dip into orange without washing the brush, so I'll get a little more orange in my brush. And then just wipe the brush and add a little bit of gamboge. So then the scarlet becomes orange. It does not become gamboge at all. So I start getting some interesting dimensions. Now I'm going to continue painting this one strand and see how many different strands we have managed to interlock. In the earlier designs, we had multiple strands, like we had two here, here there were more things happening. I don't know if this is all one. So I'm just hoping that we have more than one strand here, but I wouldn't know till I paint this whole thing. So when painting, you can use a thin brush or a medium brush. In the places where the section is wide, you can continue to use the medium sized brush. And where it is thin in the corners, you can take a thin brush to the corners. In my case, my brush, this one is a very used brush, but it can become a very thin, a flat edged brush as well. So I'm able to use just one corner of that edge to paint into the tiny sections over here. So these designs now you will notice in a lot of graphics or references, to Scotland, Ireland, many of the brands from these countries or regions will also use the Celtic knot in some form or another. Like, for example, Guinness. Guinness beer has got this as part of their, not the logo, but their identity. Somewhere you will see it in their posters or even in their branding. Irish pubs will often have this. And along with this, you will also see something called the insular script, and that is the script that was used in Ireland, and especially Ireland, for the manuscripts that were made around this time. Depending upon the region in Europe where the manuscript was made, you had obviously local artists working who were familiar with the local designs, and also it was for the purpose of the local people. So many of these manuscripts will also have these designs. In particular, the Book of Kells, which is considered the national treasure of Ireland, which was written sometime in the 9th century AD in an island, started at an island called Ionia, just off the coast of Ireland, but finished in the time when the monastery in which it was being made was attacked, and then the manuscript was moved to Dublin eventually. I don't know whether it was saved or finished before it was saved. So there's a very interesting history to that, and but it's all shrouded in mystery. How the book survived, where it was kept, who guarded it, who wrote it. There are few clues available, and calligraphers have tried to piece together certain information to figure out all these facts. But it's a huge book. Well, by huge I mean much larger in size than traditional manuscripts were, and it is fully illuminated. Now, illumination is when you create a book using gold gilding. This was gilding is done when you use gold foil on a paper on using a binder medium, and that gold is meant to make the document look very impressive when it is kept in a church on the altar in candlelight, which would have been what most of these spaces would have been illuminated by in the first place. So the candlelight hitting on this almost bejeweled piece of work on paper would make the book lighten or light up literally, and make it seem as if the words on it were actually divine. It's a very wonderful device, cleverly used by artists in the past, and that's why all these documents were called illuminated. There we have it. Now, once this has dried, you can go over the shaded sections and make it darker. On watercolor, regular graphite pencil will also appear a little darker, so your shading can be even more impressive, much deeper, and fresher also. But this is an option I like to have if I feel the need. I prefer the to do the shading before and then overlay with the second shading on top of the watercolor. It's a lot more impressive that way. Oh, it looks so beautiful. I love it. So simple. Now, if you want to go one step further, if you've got something like a gold pen, you can always go over the edges with that gold pen and make it even more shiny. Let me see if I have mine. This was something when I used to do the Instagram sessions during lockdown. The people who attended would always know that I would finish off a design using a gold pen. Oh, Jasmine has left. Okay. Okay, so I have this pen and I can just fill in with a line with this gold pen and imitate that illumination. Okay, so I guess that's it.